I have the honor to introduce my friend Naomi Cohn Zentner. She's an ethnomusicologist specializing in the research of Ashkenazi music in the home. She wrote a dissertation in the Hebrew University Musicology Department about the Tzmirot Shabbat traditions of Ashkenazi families in Israel. She's currently a researcher in Hebrew University's I-Core group called Da'at HaMakom, focusing on the concept of place in modern Jewish culture. She's also a lecturer at the curatorial department of the Hebrew Union College. And when I think back, when my husband Ron and I visited Naomi and Imanu in Canada, where she studied at McGill University, I remembered everything being really cold and full of thick ice and snow, and you really had to focus to go and arrive where you wanted to go, and that's really an image for me for Naomi, because she really focused on her research, which is her passion, which is how it should be, and while doing her studies and PhD and having 4 children, 4 wonderful children, she kept going and never lost focus. So this is what I think when I think about Naomi. So enjoy.
Does anyone recognize which city is in the background of this? So it's Frankfurt am Main. And soon we'll see why we have Frankfurt. So Manos, I'm going to be doing like this. This is Hannah. This is Hannah Pick. She's actually my husband's auntie. She is a childhood friend of Anna Frank. And this is on my first ethnological research where I came to interview Hannah with my friend Amalia. We asked her about Shir Hamaalot in her home. What did her parents sing the tunes for Shir Hamaalot? And she said the following.
Ich kann mich da nicht aus.
יש פה גם את המילים של מה שהיא אומרת. את התוכן של השיחה. אז היא אומרת, סוכות קראו לזה השיקוליגן, ואז היא מנצלזמת את זה. And then she hums it, and she says, את לא מכירה את זה? Don't you know it? And I said, yes, I know it. It's from Hallel. And she says, yes, it was always very good. We sat in our sukkah, and our neighbors upstairs usually ate at the same time. And they started singing it, singing Shir Hamaalot, the tune. And then we could continue, but that was Sukkot. And on Shavuot, there was no sukkah. And Pesach, that's she hums. And Shavuot, maybe do you know Shavuot? She's asking me. Every year I get angry that I forgot. And so I said to you, yeah, maybe I can find out for you what the tune is for Shavuot. And Amaya, my friend, says, yeah, we could find. And Hannah says, yes, כמה יקים יש עוד שיודעים את זה? There are still a few yakis that know the tune for Shavuot. So she's talking about the tunes for Shir Hamaalot. And she says that every festival had a special tune for Shir Hamaalot, which was sung on that occasion. But there were differences between some melodies and other. The melody for Shavuot was more complicated to remember because you didn't have any landsman who was sitting in a sukkah outside and could remind you of the tune. She kept saying, in Shavuot there's no sukkah. And she's finally saying, do you remember? Maybe you can tell me. I remember there was a tune, but I can't recall what the tune for Shavuot was. So Hannah, as many other German Jews that I interviewed in Israel, they have this cherished memory of this melody reminding them of their childhood home, of a place, of a time, something which is connected to their deepest, earliest family memories. And the experience of singing, hearing music, or singing music, it enables you to be somewhere else. Not just somewhere else, also in a different time. And music has that ability to really bring bring us back and bring us to a different place. So Hannah was born in Germany and moved to Holland at a young age, where she met Anne Frank and became her best friend. And later, after the Holocaust, when she went through the camps, she came to Israel. And we can hear that the tune for Shavuot isn't so much present in her children's home, in her own home. Maybe it's something which they used to sing and they forgot. And so today I'm going to be speaking a little bit about how Shir Hamaalot, the tunes for Shir Hamaalot are an important part of memory of place, and of memory of ritual time. So memory of time, but not just time, of specific seasonal events, of festivals. And we're talking about something called the seasonal melodies. Melodies which remind us of a certain time in the year. So we're going to be speaking sort of about a musical calendar. A calendar in which every month or every festival has its own melody. And speaking here in Zurich, for me, it's almost I'm telling you something that it's obvious for you. But in Israel, this is not at all obvious, that there could be such a thing that you walk into a shul and you hear a tune and it brings you back to, focuses you on the time that you are standing at. Maybe you have that for Rosh Hashanah, when you walk in shul, you hear na 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 na. Like, okay, I know what time it is, I know what day it is, I know what I should be thinking, I know what's going to be the next stage. The music helps to focus us on what is going to be happening and what we're supposed to be thinking and feeling and what time of year we are at. So we're speaking of Frankfurt. You see here, this is a manuscript from 1824 from Frankfurt, because most of the tunes which I collected for this project, for this research project, were from Frankfurt, because this is a project speaking about place, because different places have different tunes. And this is very much connected to the tunes of Frankfurt. Frankfurt happens to be a very well-documented community. So we know what the prayer sounded like, because we have 3 big collections of books from different years, of all of the prayers, all the liturgy of Frankfurt. We also have many people which have been interviewed over the years and have sang the tunes of Frankfurt. So today we are specifically speaking of Frankfurt, but we're also talking about Shir Hamaalot. Now the custom of singing Shir Hamaalot, which is Mizmor Kuf Kaf Vav of Tehillim, at home in front of before Shir Hamaalot, before Birkat Hamazon, is a relatively modern custom, which means in older manuscripts you really only have a zimun, and then Hazan, Birkat Hazan. You don't really have Shir Hamaalot when you think of it. When did this custom start being used? When did they start singing Shir Hamaalot for festivals and Shabbat, and Al Na'arot Bavel for every day? So this is something which was only mentioned in halachic sources from the 17th century, which is relatively recent. And the custom of singing this text with different melodies for holidays and for Sabbaths is taking advantage of the power of music to signify ritual time. So it's saying there's a specific melody, it belongs to a specific place, it belongs to part of the tefillah, it's part of the shul, and the home is echoing the tune which is used in the shul, and using the power that music has to signify this ritual time, this specific seasonal festival. And these seasonal melodies originated from piyutim, from the synagogue. So the tune for Sukkot, the tune for Shavuot, they were all taken from music which was used in the synagogue during that festival, and they were later echoed in the home. And so these seasonal melodies were also echoed in the shul, so they were used for the specific piyut, but they were also used for other parts of the prayer. So you also sang in Lecha Dodi, in Adon Olam, and sometimes in Kaddish or Kusha, and often in Hallel. And even in the Mevarchim HaChodesh, before the month, right, Mevarchim HaChodesh before Hanukkah, for example, you have the tune of Maoz Tzur, which is reminding you of the festival which is coming up. And so what is the tune that Hannah was trying to remember? The tune she's trying to remember originates from a piyut. We said they all originated in piyutim, right? This piyut we're speaking of is piyut Akdamut Milin from the 11th century. It's actually from quite close to here, closer to here than Israel, from Worms. And the melody we have here, it was sung in the synagogue. When was it sung? In Hallel, right? This is Hodu for Shavuos, and it's from a book of all the prayers for the whole year, from Frankfurt, 1912. So we know that already in 1912 in Frankfurt they sang Hodu l'Adonai Tov li le'olam chasto Yamama Israel ki le'olam chasto. And we can hear the way it sounds. I'm sorry if the sound isn't good enough, we're going to have to sing. I apologize. Let's try again and see if it works. So this piyut of Akdamut Milim is actually a piyut, if you go back though, it's actually a piyut in Aramaic, and it's a piyut reshut. Reshut is asking for permission, and it's asking for permission to start translating the Torah into Aramaic. So it's actually said inside the Torah reading. It used to be said mamash inside after the first pasuk of the Torah reading on Shavuot, and sort of stopped the reading in the middle. We'll hear about this later, why it's important that this piyut suddenly is stuck in the middle of reading the Torah, asking for permission from now on for the whole year to translate the Torah into Aramaic. And so this is a piyut reshut. And this melody was taken, we can see, for Hallel, it was taken for L'Chadodi sometimes, and it was also taken for the home. And this is the melody that Chana was trying very, very much to recall. And couldn't, because when else will you be reminded of it? If your synagogue doesn't sing it anymore, if the synagogue you grew up in no longer exists, and the musical tradition of the synagogue no longer exists, what's going to remind you of this melody? And even if you sing this melody, is it going to remind your children of anything? Because they haven't grown up in this liturgical framework where this has a significance. Yes?
Who composed these melodies? Where do they come from?
We don't know, but I have to tell you there is one musical researcher called Eric Werner who wrote a book about Ashkenazi music called The Sacred Bridge. You can already imagine where he thinks the music comes from. He thinks it's originally either sacred or folk European song, which was taken over the Sacred Bridge and adopted by the Jewish communities. So he assumes that they're all folk melodies.
From where
Europe.
People lived?
Yes. Regional, local folk melodies.
So the composers just took them over from these?
Yes, that's his idea. You can't really prove it unless you find a specific source in an old folk song book, and we don't really have anything you can point on. Maybe we do have. I'll mention one which we do have, which we know where it's from.
This sounded very much like a cantata.
A cantata, possibly. That's also originally from somewhere, you know, they all originate somewhere. So maybe we'll move on to the next. So this table looks very simple, but I worked for about 3 months on this, because this is to try and take this riddle of where are these tunes from, okay? So we have a tune for Sfirat HaOmer, okay? This is the Sfirat HaOmer of Shir Hamaalot. Shir Hamaalot for Sfirat HaOmer. Where is this tune from? So you search in old manuscripts and books of what's in the Tefillah, and you try and find the original piyut this melody is based on. So for example, here I found that it's taken from the Brach Todi, the Shacharit, the first day of Pesach, and Shabbat Chol HaMoed. So it's taken from a certain piyut called Brach Todi. Shavuot, we said, Shabbat Chazon is Eli Tzion. I'm sure a lot of this is familiar to you. Simchat Torah is the Yaris Kaddish, or it's Agil Ve'esmach, a piyut for Hakafot. Sukkot is the Lulav Shittin, the melody for shaking the Lulav. This actually isn't a piyut, but it's just a melody which is used during Hallel. Yom Kippur, Asher Imatecha. This is a Frankfurt tradition. It's not the same tradition in different places. This is a local tradition of Frankfurt. And Rosh Hashanah is Eder Bahod. Anyone know? Eder Bahod. So Anim Zemirot is also based on this same melody, but originally it's a melody for Rosh Hashanah, for Yomim Noraim, and it was taken for Shir Hamaalot, Yom HaRatolam was used in Frankfurt also, for Rosh Hashanah, etc. Move on, please. So for example, the melody for Sukkot is the Lulav Shittel melody. You see here, everyone Shittel is Lulav, I don't know how you say that properly. And we hear a recording of Ben Weiss, who is was the cantor in New York. He came from Frankfurt to New York. And here we have from 1912, this is used for Hodu for Sukkot. Of course, Hodu is when you shake the lulav, so the melody originates there. as well, and it's used for Shir Hamaalot on Sukkot. And when you hear him singing it, there are different ways of singing it, right? Not everyone goes, da, 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 da. There are different ways of singing it. Again, because this is music in the home, so domestic traditions are something passed from father to son as an oral tradition. They're not usually written down. And certain things become custom. One family sings this way, another family sings this way, then they argue which one has the right tradition. No, we do it the right way, you don't do it the right way. But originally, we know that melodies like this, they actually originated in the synagogue, and perhaps even they originated somewhere else completely and were just taken into the synagogue from music which was folk music. Move on to the next one. Another example is for Pesach. So we have Adil. This is an unknown poet. It's from the 14th century. It started appearing in the very end of the Haggadah. It's not, the words aren't actually about Pesach. Adil Baruch Hu, it's giving us a kostichon from the Aleph Bet, speaking about Hashem, Beito Bekarov, and the melody, you can hear it. So this is actually a tradition from outside the synagogue. This is a home tradition. We sing it in Leila Seder at home. But still it was taken into the synagogue, sung for Hodu, for Pesach, okay, it's part of the Hallel, and then taken back home for Shir Hamaalot at the end of the day. By the end of the day, you heard this melody quite a few times. But that's also what gave it such a strong significance. It really had a very strong meaning as far as what it reminds you of, where it puts you, what mindset it puts you into. So please, let's hear if we can hear it. This is Kaddish from Pesach. This is actually something else, but it started off as Hodu Pesach. Then it moved on. I think it's actually the advantage. I think it's actually the Yaris Kaddish, which moves on for different melodies. Okay, so on Simchat Torah, because Simchat Torah
so slowly on the Kaddish, because we wanted to put all melodies in the
all
Kaddish.
the melodies together. So some families, they sing this Yaris Kaddish for Shir Hamaalot. They do Yaris Maalot. And then they have all the tunes of all the different seasons in one Shir Hamaalot. And you need to be very clever to be able to do it. Not every chazan could do this Kaddish, and not every family could sing this Shir Hamaalot in the home, because you have to move all the time from the different festivals. Each center is a different tune. So how old is this musical tradition? No, Lima? How old is this musical Amsterdam from 1794. And in this we have Hodu as part of the Hallel for Leil HaSeder. So we know this is at least from the 18th century, probably even before. These are old musical traditions. These are old melodies. So when you use these temporal melodies, these seasonal melodies in the home for Shir Hamaalot, you are sort of elevating the whole meal and the Birkat HaMazon for being not just a meal, not just a Birkat HaMazon. You're making them very much connected to the time, to the festival that you're part of. Otherwise, the meal is really just like any other Shabbat meal or any other meal which is for a different festival. This makes it specifically for Pesach or specifically for Shavuot. And so it gives the meal a special connection, and also you're connecting it to the prayers of the synagogue, which were just a few hours earlier. You're making the prayer part of the ritual of this festival. So let's move on, perhaps. Now, we're speaking of Frankfurt. All these melodies so far have been of Frankfurt. But for example, certain tunes were known in different places for Shir Hamaalot. And this is, of course, taken from the Piyut, which was also sung in a different melody in those places. We have different melodies in Basel, for example, in Copenhagen and Hamburg. Different Piyutim were sung to different melodies there. And so if you wanted to remind the people or to remind your family of the special tune which happened at that festival, you also had to change accordingly. So we're speaking of local traditions. So for example, in Purim, Shir Hamaalot would be sung in Copenhagen for the following melody.
Shir Hamaalot
anyone know it? And now we brought a special specimen from Basel who can give us a first-hand documentation of what it sounds like when you do Shir Hamaalot in Rosh Hashanah in Basel.
In my family.
Yeah, we find a different tradition. And this is, of course, based, again, on the prayer, which was part of the prayers of Rosh Hashanah in Basel. So here we go, please.
Can you join me? Shir Hamaalot b'shuv Hashem et shivat Zion היינו כחולמים אז ימלא שחופינו שונה ידינו
And what is this based on in the prayer? Can you give us a little from Kaddish? Sorry, I didn't hear. Yes, from that. There you go. So when you have this isn't based on a piyut specifically, but it is based on something which specially sounds like Rosh Hashanah in Basel, and it's a special Kaddish. And so this is what is taken home and used as a tune for Shir Hamaalot. Now, what about the regular tunes that we sing for Shir Hamaalot? The regular. Now, when you use the word regular, it's a difficult use. Ethnomusicologists, they don't know what to do with the regular. They understand that it means traditional, and it means something which is the not out of the ordinary. But when you say, oh, the regular tune, you know, you're assuming that someone knows what the regular is, that they're part of your tradition. It's complicated. But let's ask about the regular tune. So let's move on to the next. What is the regular tune? So let me tell you that, for example, we know, this is a document from 1932, this is a piyut of Machnisei Rachamim. Machnisei Rachamim, Machnisu Rachamenu, Lifnei Baal Rachamim. So this is a piyut from when? From Sliches. And so we say it all through Aseret Yemei Tshuva, and even before from Motzei Shabbat to Rosh Hashanah. Machnisei Rachamim, Machnisu Rachamim, Lifnei Baal Rachamim. This is Shir Hamaalot for Yemim Noraim. You can also sing it for Anim Zemirot. Anim Zemirot.
Sounds
like Verdi. No. This is obviously a product of a place and a time. They were influenced all the time. There was music coming in and out. There was a cross-fertilization. Music came in from non-Jewish sources, and also Jewish music was adopted by others. And here we have a case of music which was maybe originally used for Machnisei Rachamim, then maybe taken from the synagogue into the home as a song for Shir Hamaalot, specific to that time. And then maybe it just sounded so nice. It sounded like Verdi. It sounded nice, beautiful. So people kept singing it even after that season was over, and it became the regular tune. So things like that also happened, meaning something which had a very close, specific meaning to one time, lost its specific time meaning. I mean, when we sing it now, we don't think of slichot. It lost that signifying. This is a musical code, okay? We're speaking of a code. You have a signified and a signifier. The signifier is the melody. The melody is a symbol of a certain time. And the signified is this actual time we're speaking about. Now, this code can only happen in a very homogeneous community, where year after year, the same people sit in the same synagogue with the same chazan who sings the same melodies again and again and again. And this is what ingrained these melodies into people's minds and hearts as something which is specifically connected to a place, to their synagogue, a specific local tradition, and to a time, to the time when this song was sung. So can we move on? Question? No. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so now we're going to speak a little bit about this idea of the Shabbat. Avraham Yeshua Eshel speaks of the Shabbat as a cathedral in time. We don't know how to build very beautiful, we don't know, we can, but we're not specialized in that. The Judaism speciality is building a building which isn't a material building, but it's a building in time. It's sanctifying specific times. And how do we do this? We do this in all different ways. Certain times receive special symbolic values. So maybe someone would like to read this for us.
She's English speaker.
Yes, please.
Judaism is a religion of time, aiming at the sanctification of time. Judaism teaches us to attach holiness in time, to be attached to sacred events, to learn how to consecrate sanctuaries that emerge from the magnificent stream of a year. The Sabbaths are our great cathedrals. Jewish ritual may be characterized as the art of significant forms in time as architecture of time.
So our Jewish ritual are used. This is the art of significant forms is time, the architecture of time. So our rituals are always connected to how can we make this time significant, special. And there are different ways of doing this. We do it by eating special food in different times. Once upon a time, it used to be very significant. When you bring the soup, you sing Kol Mekadesh, right? Go before the fish. And once upon a time, it used to be very specific that when winter starts, then you start having the maroni soup, or something like that. There are different events, and there are different ways of sanctifying this time. And music is only one of them. And music is very powerful at doing that. And Judaism is not the only religion in which music is good at giving us a significant signification of time. Catholic ritual also there are certain melodies which are used certain times of year, certain red dresses which are used by the clergy, which reminds us that this is a specific time of year. And even in Frankfurt, we have, for example, Mordechai Breuer, who grew up in Frankfurt am Main before he immigrated to Israel. He recalls how impressed he was with the special blue and white silk talis which was worn by the Chazan on festivals compared to the regular black and white talit which was worn on regular Sabbaths. So this kind of having a special parochet, having a special clothes, the Chazan putting on special white clothes or using a special talis, these are things which help us to feel this characterization, the architecture of time. Even special food. We have also traditions which we know in Germany of having special type of foods in different times. So you started having beans after Shabbat Bereshit, or something. I have to find exactly the quote here. In an article from 1924, titled, and I'm going to get this all wrong, you forgive me, Erinnerung an jüdisches Leben und Brauche in Gudensberg und Orten der Umgebung. So the author refers to the religious and ritual customs of Jews in the Hessen district, and he recalls particular food for each occasion and for each time. For example, the menu on a brit should be coffee. Coffee. And weddings, it should be sour cabbage. And he says that special dishes should be served on special Shabbat. For example, on Shabbat Chanukah, the first canned green beans should be enjoyed. Canned green beans. It's like a big thing that they're canned. It's very special. You should be enjoying them only on Shabbat Chanukah. Please keep your canned beans for Shabbat Chanukah so you have a real delicatesse. This is 1924. I think canned might have been a very special thing for them then. And Shabbat V'Shalach, wheat should be added to the soup, etc., etc. So we have all these non-musical signifiers, food, dress, ornaments in the synagogue, which remind us again and again. They help us to build this image of a certain event and all the things which are connected to it. And music is really only one of these kind of things. But we have to remember that there has been a decline in the use of these piyutim, in these synagogue traditions, obviously after the Shoah. But even before that, even before the synagogues in which these traditions were destroyed, this tradition of singing piyutim in the shul started to decline. It started to decline already in the 19th century, and even earlier. In the 19th century, you had the Reform movement. The Reform movement said, we must remove the piyutim from the prayers. They make them long for no reason. They're in a language which is difficult to understand. It makes no sense. We have to remove all the piyutim from the tefillah. On the other hand, we have the Gaon of Vilna. The Gaon of Vilna also, he and especially his pupils after him said, we must remove the piyutim from the tefillah. The piyutim make the tefillah much more longer. They do a hefsek, which means they are stopping with their like a place where we stop in the normative prayers. Remember when we spoke about Akdamut being in the middle of Kriyat Torah? I mean, imagine you say you read one pasuk in the reading of Shavuot. You say this long piyut in Aramaic. Nobody today, at least, really understands its significance or its meaning or what it's trying to say. And then you continue your praying, your reading of the Torah. This is what's called in halachic language a hefsek, and especially the piyutim, the yotzrot, and you have all different kinds of piyutim which were in the Shema service, in the Shema reading. So for Agra and his students, it was perceived as being something which is stopping the normative prayers from being continuous, and so they must be removed. And this is the tradition in Israel, where, for example, in Sidur Rinat Israel, which was put out in Israel by the Zionist, religious Zionists in the 1960s. Many of the piyutim, okay, you don't remove them, you put them at the end, in the appendix, at the very, very back. Whoever wants to can still read them. We didn't take them out of the prayer book. They're still there. They have their place of honor, but nobody says them anymore. And so in many, many ways, there was an issue of trying to make this prayer shorter, trying to sing more parts of it in communal singing, and therefore the piyutim, in many cases, were seen as irrelevant. And so unfortunately, we're not allowed to say unfortunately in academic circles, luckily we're not in an academic conference. We can't say it's a chaval, it's a shame, we lost something. We can't say things like that. We have to say it happened. But I can personally say that this was a real tradition, and many people, in a sense, this was what made their prayer significant and important. And so gradually, in many, many places, either being influenced by the Reform or influenced by the Gaon Mivilna, they started to remove these piyutim. And so the only place that they really remained were in the home. In the home. The truth is, in Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, we still do have some of these piyutim. We have the Reshut, we have the Sod Yesharim. There are some piyutim in Yom Kippur which remain. But in general, in many other places, the piyutim have been removed. And so the tunes of the piyutim also have been lost largely. And one of the only places which they still remain are in the home, in the Shir Hamaalot. Because Shir Hamaalot is reminding us of a piyut which once was there. And maybe the synagogue doesn't exist anymore. Maybe there's no prayer there anymore. Maybe even if there is a synagogue and there's a prayer, they don't sing this piyut anymore. It doesn't have its significance that it used to have. It's not the same as going to shul, hearing the piyut, and then coming home and singing the same melody in the meal right after it. That's why it's so hard to remember. That's why Hannah has a hard time remembering it. If she was in Germany and she had heard it in shul the same day and she came home Shavuot lunch, it would be very easy to remember. All her family, all her community, everyone were part of this big tradition. But she's no longer in Germany, her community no longer exists, and all she can do is be reminded from her neighbors who also are landsmen from the same place, who have the same tradition, of the tune on Sukkot when they're sitting outside in a space which is open. But when she's at home, in Shavuot, it's something which it's hard to remember. So we spoke about how ritual time can be symbolized by a system of food, of dress. This is a kittel, and of synagogue ornaments. Sometimes you come to shul, suddenly my children see there's a new parochet on the aron. It means something, and it has on it Zochrenu l'chaim melech hafetz b'chaim. It has on it a pasuk which also brings us to a specific time of year. This is the way ritual time is symbolized by this system, and music is just another one of these. This system, this code. Now, we spoke of music as a signifier of time, but music is also a signifier of place. And here I'm speaking of Frankfurt. This is the Judengasse in Frankfurt. Over there is the Rothschild's house. They used to live on the house in Judengasse. And this is also from Frankfurt. So we speak of this music, this song, which people are still singing as a memory of time, but this is about a memory of place. These people remember Frankfurt through singing a song which they learned in their childhood in Frankfurt. Not only reminding us of the time, it's reminding us of a place. And Bichlal, in general, why do we say Shir Hamaalot? And what are we saying in Shir Hamaalot? Shir Hamaalot is, of course, saying that we hope to leave this place of exile and go towards Shuva Hashem et Shavitenu, go towards the Zion, the rebuilding of Zion. Kafikim b'Negev, Shuva Hashem et Shivat Zion, Ainu kecholmim, we're hoping, we're praying, maybe we even see it ourselves, the return to Zion, the return to a place. And it's mentioned in the Mishnah Brura, in the first part of Shulchan Aruch, the first siman, it says, Ra'oi l'chol yireh shamayim sheyehem etzel v'do'eg al churban al Beit HaMikdash. Part of our halachot is that we have to be very, very sad and worried and upset about the churban, the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. What does Mishnah Brura say? How do we remember churban Beit HaMikdash? We're speaking about the memory of a place. Ashla, כתב השלה, שבכל סעודה יאמר על נהרות בבל, ובשבת, וכן בימים שאין אומרים בהם בתחנון, יאמר שיר המעלות בשוב השם. והעיקר שידע מה כאמר, ואחר כוונת הלב הם הדברים. So the Shla is quoted in the Mishnah Brura, and he says, how do we do this? How do we remember this destruction? Well, we do it by saying a small something before Birkat HaMazon, before the grace after meals. Either Al Narot Bavel, which reminds us of the exile, or if it's Shabbat or any other day which has no tachanun, you say Shir Hamaalot. So Shir Hamaalot itself is a memory of a place. This is the way we remember a place. But there's a paradox. Because the melody of Shir Hamaalot is reminding those people in Israel, the first generation of immigrants from Frankfurt to Israel, from Frankfurt somewhere else, the melody is reminiscent of Frankfurt, of a place of exile. What are the words saying? Shivat Zion. And this is a memory of the Churban Beit HaMikdash. So we have here really an intricate web of memory of place. And so the music itself is really what's reminding us of this place of exile, which for us was a home. So it's something to get our head around. The domestic spheres were number one. So this is the home, this is a picture, and this is the synagogue of the Gemeinde of Frankfurt. In many ways, the family was really a stronghold of these liturgical musical traditions. So certain things only remained in the home. And they remained in the home because the home was echoing the synagogue. And when the synagogue was destroyed, or when there was a displacement and they had to leave the place where they grew up, the family was the only place where these things remained as a musical memory of the place. And the family is more flexible framework, meaning a family is able to be more flexible and more fluid than a synagogue. Once a synagogue is destroyed or there's no more community, the synagogue traditions are also gone. You can go and try and find a few people who have the same tradition in a new country. It's not going to be the same. It's very, very hard. It's very difficult. But for a family to continue a family tradition, wherever they go, it's much more flexible. That families, in a way, are able to overcome displacement much better than synagogues and communities were able to do. So liturgical traditions were much more fragile in a way. You wouldn't think of it. Look at this big cathedral. Look how big it is and how strong it is. But in a way, because it was so big, because it was something, liturgical traditions were more breakable. And the family, in a way, was something that enough that one person had a memory, he could teach his family, and it could become a domestic oral tradition. Yes?
How are such musical traditions introduced? How do they start? Unless you say they come from way back from the Beit HaMikdash, sometime they have to be introduced. So who does it? How is it done?
Well, there were cantors. There's a continual process of the musicalization of the tefillah. I mean, the prayer was once upon a time almost not at all sung. I mean, we can ourselves remember when it was a lot less singing in the prayers than in certain synagogues it is today. In most synagogues, more and more parts of the prayer began to sing. So you can ask yourself,
how do you know? The Beit HaMikdash was full of singing.
But then, since the destruction, first of all, the destruction, you were not allowed to sing at all. Slowly, if it was a sacred event, if it was a happy event, you could slowly bring in song. But cantors had a very important part in establishing, later in the 19th century, was establishing a choir and bringing in a repertory and bring people who could already start to read notes. In the 16th and 17th century, you had influence of opera. You had all these cantorial fantasias and recitatives which were taken from the opera. So cantors were very good at being laymen, being people who were able to be agents of change, bring music into the synagogue from outside, because there was always an interest in trying to beautify the liturgy with music.
So Lewandowski was a cantor, I guess.
Yeah, of course. He was in the new...
Much of our music in the AG is from Lewandowski.
Yes, because this music was so beautiful. It was adopted as like a musical tradition of many synagogues outside of Berlin. He was the cantor in Berlin, in the new synagogue in Berlin. Other questions? Okay. So let's... Yes.
What is special about the structure of Shir Hamaalot that makes it so flexible that you can put so many tunes on it?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure if the text itself is so flexible. I mean, we have to stretch the music sometimes. We have to squish it sometimes. We have to add on the Tilat Hashem to make sure the melody actually finishes at its end and not in the middle, which I think is the reason maybe we even say Tilat Hashem in the very end. There were some melodies that were just too short. You had to add a bit more text to make it longer. I'm not sure that the text is actually so perfect for music.
But you can adapt a lot of tunes to it.
You can.
That and Adonalam.
Adonalam, it's much easier because Adonalam is actually written in rhythm. It's written in Arabic rhythm. Adon, Olam, Asher, Malach, also Dero, Ikra, Inven, Imva. It's very square, it's easy to fit in. Shir Hamaalot isn't like that so much. Shir Hamaalot, B'shuv Hashem, et Shivat Zioneinu Kecholmim. It's prose. It's not really in song, strophe side. I'm trying to think, what should we say? Any other questions, or should I continue? Maybe I'll give you an example of the way in which these songs sometimes remained in the family, but they lost their significance. They became like an empty shell. Because once upon a time, they were very closely linked to the music of the synagogue, the music of a time, and later on, they just remained in the home. And for example, I have an example of someone who, as a child, he was born in London, but his parents came from Frankfurt, and now he lives in Israel, and he sang me a song. And he knew this was the song, meaning he doesn't maybe know where it originates from, because he never experienced this tefillah, this prayer, this song as it was sung in synagogue in Frankfurt. He only knows it as a family tradition. So sometimes these things lost their seasonal meaning. So maybe we can move to the next Okay, so Josef Bodenheimer, born in London to a family from Frankfurt. Professor Josef Bodenheimer, the head of Cohn Lev, in case you know. He sings this song as Shir Hamaalot for Shmini Atzeret. Okay, so it took me a long time to find, lots of searching, where in the prayer for Shmini Atzeret this melody comes from. Which piyut is this based on? Couldn't find it. I looked through Shoelman, which is the 1912 Frankfurt. I looked through Ohuch, 1930 Frankfurt. I looked through Yafet, 1856 Frankfurt.